If you've tried budgeting before and given up, I know why. Most budgeting systems want you to track every single dollar, every coffee, every transaction. That's not a budget, that's just extremely boring admin work. I'm Scott Ennis, I'm a financial coach, and I'm going to show you a budgeting system that actually focuses on what matters. I've worked with hundreds of Kiwi on their finances, and here's what I keep seeing. People either spend hours tracking their spending, or they just get so overwhelmed they don't even know where to start. Nothing really changes, because information without behavior change is just guilt. Here's the truth. You don't need to track everything. You need to automate the boring stuff and focus on what you can actually control. So here's what I'm showing you today. A budget system that takes your fixed expenses off the table so you can focus on the variable spending that actually matters. Let's go. Here's why most budgeting systems fail. Most systems treat every expense the exact same. Your rent gets the same attention as your coffee budget. Your power bill gets tracked the same way as your grocery spending. That's just a complete waste of energy. Your rent is the same every month. Your insurance is the same every month. Your phone bill, internet, subscriptions, they're all fixed expenses. You can't really change them week to week. So why are you spending mental energy tracking them every time? Meanwhile, your groceries, your eating out, your random spending, that's where variation happens. That's where you actually have decisions to make. But most budget systems want you to track everything equally. So you spend all this time on stuff that doesn't really matter and ignore the stuff that does. But most budgeting systems want you to track everything equally. So you spend all this time on stuff that doesn't matter and ignore the stuff that does. Here's the shift. Let's automate those fixed expenses, focus your energy on variable spending. That's where behavioral change actually happens. This video is not for someone who already has a budget and system in place that works. There's 3,000 different ways you can budget. This is for someone who has tried a system and it just isn't working and they need to try something new. So let's get into it. So what we're going to do is head over to moneymaverick.com/resources right up the top here. Have a look at my budgeting spreadsheet. Let's open that up now. What you'll see is a very intentional separation of your income, your fixed expenses, and your variable expenses, okay? So I've got an example here. You're always welcome to refer to it. So your income, this is going to be really easy for some people, a lot more challenging for others. But for this example, we got 1 wage, 2 wage, and we got a little bit of money from the Family Boost tax credit, okay? We're then going to go down and we're going to list our fixed expenses. So fixed expenses are everything that are regular and ongoing. So as you can see, you know exactly when and how much a bill is upcoming. So we've got your mortgage, we've got your house insurance, contents, local rates, water, all this stuff here, okay? So these all have a bill attached to them. Put the frequency in here and it'll spit out a number in a sec. I'll show you that, right? What we want to do with all these fixed expenses is we want to challenge them, okay? I really don't want you to just sit here and say, oh, I'm stuck in this rental or mortgage or whatever. I want to give you some agency back with this budget, because the whole point of the budget is to maintain control and give you back some agency and autonomy. I want you to be able to have some behavioral changes out of here. So sit down with your partner, sit down with someone and say, do we value our living expenses, okay? Most times, 99 times out of 100, this is gonna be something that you probably are not gonna change. However, there is the one time that I remember talking to a young client who bought a house very early on. He actually, from our conversation, decided to sell his house and house sit for a period of time while he grew something. So it's not off the table, and I want to, the main purpose of this is agency. So go through the exercise. Are we happy with the house we're living in? You can't really do much about some of these stuff, the rates, for example, but contents and house insurance, spend some time actually review them. Can we get better value, not better price, not cheaper, because we don't want cheap insurance. Can we get better value? Are we in the right childcare facility? Personal health insurance, is that all going to be, can that be reviewed? Can we do better? Have we not reviewed it in a while? Sit down with your insurance advisor. If you haven't talked to one, maybe try one. Car insurance, same thing. You can get quotes online. Rego and WAF, you can't do much about. Internet and phone, yep, let's go see if we can get a better deal. Spotify, subscriptions in general. We don't have any TV subscriptions because my 2-year-old broke our TV, so that's a story for another day. But you know, we used to have a rule where it was 1 video subscription at a time. So just own all of your fixed expenses. This might take a month to go through this stuff, right? Own it. You're going to own this one. It's going to spit out a number. There's your fixed expenses to cover this. A lot of people have gym in here, that kind of stuff. Variable expenses is where I want to keep your energy. I can guarantee you when you sit down and do this budget for the first time, your variable expenses will be wrong. I've been tracking our expenses 4 years now. So I'm pretty in tune into what we spend, but this is where I want your attention. Okay. This is where most people in New Zealand and around the world struggle with their finances. This is where they get stuck. This is where they get overwhelmed. But what I want to do is, this is a different behavioral action than this one. Once we've decided that we are happy with our fixed expense, we're going to actually transfer this number into a separate account. Okay. We're going to call it fixed expenses. And every single payment's going to come out of this expense. Doesn't matter to match up with your payments. So if you're paid, or your income, sorry, if you're paid fortnightly, do it fortnightly. If you're paid weekly, do it weekly. But every week I'm putting $1,271.16 into my fixed expenses. And all of that is out of my rent. I don't even have to think about that stuff. It's all paid for. Even this quarterly stuff, when we get to the council rates, there's going to be $1,211.60 sitting in the account assigned for the rates. And yes, I do have to manually pay that one, but the money's already decided, right? Variable expenses is where your actual spending is. So we pay ourselves on Monday. Every single Monday, we start the week with $1,000. Nobody has access to this account unless we swipe our card. There's no surprise. You don't open up your account on Friday and the car insurance went out. Your monthly car insurance went out that you forgot about. And then all of a sudden you thought you had $80 for the weekend, but you don't. Your very expenses, you're going to own this. You open your account. If you don't spend it, it stays there. It's a great way to just be like, hey, how much do I have? Wow, we can't do much this weekend. I've noticed with this system as well, there's a couple ways to do this. Every literature that I've read about suggests that you pay yourself a savings first. With this system, and something that I've noticed that helps me is I actually like to see how big we can get this number. So at the end of Sunday night, by the time we get to the end of the week and we're going to get paid on Monday, and again, in our example, if there's $50 in there, I'm going to transfer $50 into our emergency fund or wherever it needs to go, paying off debt, investing, whatever. I've turned it into a game. How big can we get that number? I found that to be a much more helpful exercise than, I'm just going to save myself $100 this week. You get to Friday, you withdraw $80, and even though you're mathematically $20 up, psychologically you feel like a failure. And so I don't like that way, although I have yet to read a book suggest the way that I'm presenting it. So take it for what it's worth. The whole point of budgeting is finding a system that works for you. So just to summarize, we're going to list our income for some people, especially self-employed people. This is actually going to take a lot of time. Other people, this will be really easy. Fixed expenses, we're going to write them all down. We're going to automatically transfer these into another account. And then variable expenses, this is where we get to track our budget. And this is going to be a video for another time. But tracking is a very different exercise than budgeting. Those are two different skills to learn. Right now, we're just talking about budgeting. And this is, looking back at your transaction, again, I can guarantee you're going to get these wrong the first time, but just put something in there. This number should be 0. If it's negative, we're going to have to make some adjustments down here. Maybe it's $3.50 groceries, and so far. If it's positive, we can actually put a automatic payment into savings if there's extra money cash flow or extra on the mortgage or whatever. But this number should be 0. The reason I want this to be 0 is if you realistically spend $4.50 on groceries, you're going to have to find $50 a week. So I want you to go through the pain and say, oh man, we're going to have $50 less of fun. So just have that at 0 for that reason. Yeah, if you're someone who's really good at Excel, please don't peek at my formulas. They're very barbaric, but they work. So thank you very much. Yeah, so that's what your exercise is. That's how I budget our household. We have 2 accounts. We have a main account that we have our spending out of for our variable expenses. We have a fixed account for our fixed expenses, which again are all done automatically. And we actually have an emergency fund as a third account where if there's any left over at the end of the pay period, that's where it goes. Here's why this system works for some people. When you automate your fixed expenses, they're done. You're not making decisions about them every month. You're not tracking them. You're not thinking about them. All your energy goes into the variable stuff, which in my opinion is where most households are struggling. This is where the behavioral change happens. You look at your variable spending account, you see what's left, you make decisions. I've got $300 left for the next 2 weeks. Do I want to blow it on $80 on Friday night or spend it out? Or do I want to save it and we can pay off our mortgage a little bit? This is a decision that you can actually make. That's a behavior you can actually change. This is getting your head out of the sand and being way more aware about your finances. But if you're trying to track 47 different categories and your rent and your Netflix subscription are mixed in with the grocery spending, you just get overwhelmed. That $300 that's sitting there for the next 2 weeks, all of a sudden, a few expenses come out and you're down to 120, and then it's like, well, I was going to go out for 80, but now I really can't. This system really is about giving you clarity, and clarity helps you make better decisions. So this is usually 2, 3, 4 week process. So the first week, I just want you to set up your fixed expenses in your account and automate the transfers. This is going to be a little bit of a headache. Some providers, for example, I believe Spotify and some of the American subscriptions only allow you to use a credit card, which means you now have to order a credit card for your account, which is a little bit annoying. So this takes a little bit more time than you think. Week 2, we're going to track the variable spendings. Just observe. I don't want you to track every dollar, just like, hey, we spend a little bit more on groceries when we think, or holy smokes, I can't believe how much we spend on alcohol, that kind of stuff. And that's when the growth can start happening, because you're going to be way more aware of what's going on. So pick, for week 3 and beyond, pick a variable category. Decide what behavioral change needs to happen. For me, I cut out alcohol in 2025. I've simply replaced it with sugar. It's something I now need to work on. But there's a behavioral change. I'm eating because I'm stressed. I'm stressed because I'm not sleeping. I'm not sleeping because I'm not exercising. It's a whole thing. We won't go there. It's for a therapist. But anyway, maybe it's a meal plan so you stop buying takeaways. Maybe it's unsubscribing from marketing emails that you get to stop impulse shopping. Maybe it's picking lunch the night before. Pick one behavior, one category, build from there. Here's what to do right now. Grab the free spreadsheet from my website, use the template, add up your fixed expenses, your rent, your insurance, subscriptions, everything that's the same every month, fortnight, year, that kind of thing. Set up an account that gets automatically that exact amount, and then focus on what's left. That's your variable spending. That's where you have control. Because budgeting isn't about tracking everything. It's about focusing on what you can actually change. And that's how you do budgeting the Maverick way. If you found this helpful, please subscribe. I share all sorts of financial tips that go beyond the just normal transactional stuff. I try to get to the psychological and the behavioral changes, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.